Well, thank you for tuning into this conversation of leading through a crisis, where we engage with leaders from around the world and discuss how to lead in these uncertain times. Today, I'm joined by Drs. Keith Dindi and Dr. Esther Dindi from Nairobi, Kenya. Esther Dindi, if you want to Google her afterwards, is known as Dr. Fit. And already has a significant online presence. And then Dr. Keith Dindi, he's an entrepreneur, has a hair transplant clinic, a number of other things, and right now is doing a specialization in cardio surgery. And so welcome today. Tell us, how is this current crisis affecting you directly, whether it's personally or professionally?
I must confess that when the first outbreak was reported, that's the outbreak of COVID-19 or coronavirus, it just felt like something out there, very distant. We were praying for the nations that were involved. We were wishing them well. But that was until the first case was reported in Kenya, and things really drew close home, and especially for us medics, because we knew this would affect us directly. So for the family, that has meant that we can't take the kids out to the playgrounds where they're exposed to crowding. We have to apply extra safety measures to ensure that we do not bring the virus home to the kids.
We've actually had to take the kids to the grandparents because we are really on the front lines, working in the hospital, so exposed a lot. So we didn't want, coming back home and really having to think a lot about the issues of exposing the kids.
And as for the business, the Dr. Fitness business coaching online is still going on okay. But in terms of the goods-based service, we've noticed that we have to shift. We have to think outside the box and shift it to more online sales, as opposed to just having people, traffic coming into the shop. And of course, that's part of applying the safety measures, the social distancing, and all that. So we are having to think outside the box as we apply precautions.
From a business perspective, one of the businesses that I run, we've actually had to close shop for the time being, just to allow things to really settle down before we can resume operations again. So the effect of COVID are really being felt smack at home.
Now, you've got a bit of a different perspective, obviously, as doctors, maybe from anybody else that I've interviewed. Maybe give us a bit of a sense from a medical perspective. What's your take on what's going on in the world?
I think for even the medics, because this is a new thing, this pandemic is in many ways we are learning as we go. So decisions are being made on the fly. So for a lot of professionals, really, a lot of answers to the questions being asked by the masses we don't yet have. And so I think it's very important that we do social distancing. It's very important that those that are particularly vulnerable, so we're thinking about the elderly, those that have pre-existing conditions like diabetes, cancer, or any immunosuppressive conditions, that particular group of people really take extra measures. So those I think are really important measures.
Now, my sense is that as a medical professional, you might experience crisis a little more often than I do. Maybe not. But give us a bit of a sense of what are just some principles that you might want to give us, maybe leadership principles in terms of leading in the middle of a crisis. Are there some things that you could pass on to us based on your experience?
One of the things I've personally learned to do in the midst of crisis is, first of all, just focus on what is really important, what needs to be done at that point, and what is the most important next step of action. So at that point, you don't distract yourself and spend energy on things that do not make a difference at that point. And then, depending on the continuing, crises, I've also learned that in the midst of it all, beyond the acute phase, just taking care of myself, ensuring that, I'm getting as much sleep as possible within the circumstances, ensuring that I'm still moving more, just, being Dr. Fitness, I know exercise just helps me relieve stress. And eating healthy, those small things about also taking care of yourself are very important. It helps in relaxation, just being calm and being able to focus at the issues at hand.
Yeah. For me, there's a little acronym I like to use. So from leading. So LEAD acronym, and L stands for learn. So when there's crisis, I try to learn as much as possible, learn about the crisis. Where is it going? What do I need to do? What have other leaders done in dealing with this situation? So learn as much as possible. Then E stands for engage, especially in leading my teams. There are a lot of answers that I find when I engage the rest of the members of the team. So I ask very pointed questions. So essentially really engage with the team that is working with me. And then A, which I find to be the most important, you must act. After you learn a lot and engage and have a plan, you must act. So act decisively, especially from the very top. You must be willing to take that step. Then lastly, D is for delegate. And I've found that in times of crisis, I need my mind focused on what is the most important thing. So a lot of the other things I'll delegate for other people to do, and that really helps. So that is the LEAD acronym that I use, and it's been very useful for me.
At LeaderImpact, we want to help leaders grow professionally, personally, and spiritually for increasing impact. And so would you give us a bit of a window into your lives in terms of maybe more of the spiritual part of that? Where does hope come from, and how does this work for you in a time of crisis?
I think for us, knowing God has made a lot of difference. Like last evening, we just spent some time to pray, because in our country, the cases of COVID-19 risen sharply. So there's a lot of fear, and a lot of people are wondering, how are things going to be? And just that moment of prayer really made a lot of difference. We felt a lot of peace yesterday evening, by just spending a few moments to talk to God. So I think for a lot of leaders, knowing that you are not alone, that you don't have to come up with all the solutions just on your own, but that there is actually a God that we can talk to, that we can engage with, and that faith in God can help us through the crisis. For us, that has really helped.
Yeah, we definitely believe that just knowing that the maker of the universe he cares about us, and having faith in him, and knowing that we can go to God in prayer, and that he cares, that he gives us peace and calm in the midst of crisis, has made a lot of difference in our lives, in our businesses, and even in our profession. It has made a lot of difference just knowing that God cares and we can go to him in prayer.
Well, Keith and Esther, thank you for giving us some of your time today to share insights, expertise on leading through a crisis. This has been very practical and has been outstanding. And thank you today for joining us. If you aren't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook pages and be notified about our next conversation on leading through a crisis.